And Monday the 14th in Sydney. Coming up shortly, a real contrast. Jimi Hendrix. 2 decades after his death, the rock legend continues to electrify the music world. Should be saved. Well, the brief life of Jimi Hendrix produced a legacy that can still be heard today, whether in funk, jazz, rock, blues or rap, a cornerstone of modern music. But the role model of drug-ingesting rock star Hendrix would now be in his 50th year. Instead, his life and times are preserved in photographs and records, part of a Hendrix exhibition now touring internationally and opening tonight in Sydney. This preview from Nick Grimm.
There's the red house of the yonder, baby.
22 years after his death, fans of the late Jimi Hendrix still speak of him in reverent tones.
He's an icon of the 60s, but he's more than that. He's a legend, he's an idol.
Jimi Hendrix would have turned 50 last week if he was still alive. To mark the occasion, an exhibition of images of Hendrix is touring the world and opens this week in Sydney. According to rock historian Glenn A. Baker, Hendrix carved out his own niche in the annals of modern music.
Actually, I've got a whole bunch of Hendrix over here. I can squeeze my way in. Hendrix books, CDs, box sets, albums, picture discs. I mean, like every other rock icon, he left a few things behind. Old James Marshall from Seattle.
Born Johnny Allen Hendrix in Seattle, USA, his parents later changed his name to James Marshall Hendrix. But it wasn't until he was renamed Jimmy that the rock and roll legend was born. Stunts like playing with his teeth or setting fire to his guitar electrified audiences and inspired legions of imitators.
Just when we thought we had pop music sort of understood, along came this astonishing human being and said, "Excuse me, this is how you do it." Wow! Just shook the world a wee bit off its axis. There is no question about it at all.
But along with Hendrix's genius came his darker side. He died in 1970 of suffocation. He'd choked to death on his own vomit as he slept in a drug-induced stupor.
What do you think he'd be like now if he was still alive, aged 50?
I think what we would have seen is a man whose love affair with his instrument would have flowered to a point where he really would have created a music that we'd simply never ever heard before. I mean, there were indications that he was heading in that direction, but he just blew it all away just to get stoned, and it's like really, really stupid.
Excuse me while I kiss the sky.
We're glorifying him because he's one of the finest musicians that we've known. We're glorifying him because of his mastery and because of his dedication to his art.
Towards the end, he became completely out of touch. He was committing acts of extreme violence upon young women and had a manager who was in fact dishing out large amounts of money to keep it out of the paper. I mean, he became very, very strung out.
Nevertheless, the Jimi Hendrix experience hasn't diminished. The man described as the greatest guitarist of all time still sells 4 million recordings of his music every year, a feat few of his contemporaries can match.
That is the amazing Jimi Hendrix.